So I'm just going to sit back a little bit and I'm going to talk to you a little bit about what I hear Canadians are feeling. What I hear, whether it's Canadians with their personal finances, whether it's business clients, many Canadians right now are facing mortgage payment shock at renewals. And that's because in 2026, the rates are a lot higher. Um, they're feeling like, oh my goodness, I've gone from a rate where I can live and breathe and do everything that I need to do, both for myself and my family and my health and wellness, because we don't want to just be going to work every day, coming home and sitting in our house, and then sitting and thinking about how am I going to make my next payment on my car? How am I going to get food in my house? I've got a child that has some activities coming up at school or outside of school. You know, I was doing just fine, but now my mortgage payments, holy smokes, for lack of a better word, are going up to double and sometimes triple of what we were a month ago when we're sitting at renewal. So, how do we take that stress away and rebuild and restructure your lives so that you can carry on and sleep at night and just feel really good about what you're doing? Often mortgage brokers have access to dozens of lending options versus just one institution. And you've heard me talk about this in the past with this session, as well as other sessions. It's not that I stop at one lender and go, well, this is the only solution for you. I will look at multiple lenders to find the right solution for you that's going to meet your needs. My commitment, my obligation is to you. And that's what I really want you to understand. My passion that I do this for is for every single client that I work with. My heart is making sure that you are well looked after. I am working for you. I am not working for a financial institution or an alternate solution. I'm not working to make sure they're happy. I'm working to make sure you, as my client, is happy. You can sleep at night. You are confident in what you've done moving forward, and you really feel good about these decisions. And I'm here for questions. And any question you got, I'm happy to answer it. Because if you've got that question, somebody else might have that question too. And if you're asking me those questions, I also will look at building them into podcasts so that I can help many other people that have not had the opportunity to reach out to me, or sometimes people are just afraid to ask those questions. So I openly welcome any questions. Even if we are currently not working together on a client relationship, I'm here to answer those questions. I'm here to help you through those steps in life for you. When we look at fixed rate mortgages versus a variable rate mortgage, and we look at different interest rate differential penalties that clients do not discover until their life has changed and happened, that's when, a good time again is to reach out to me, because there is a lot of times that a fixed rate mortgage, you've got a life event and you need to break that mortgage because something needs restructured in that. And with that comes a large penalty. And working with me can help you not mitigate that penalty or wipe it right out, but I can help you how to restructure and build that penalty so that it's not cash coming out of your pocket right now. And sometimes it is the right decision with what's going on in life and a situation that's happened. It could be a health situation, it could be you've lost work and there's only one income in the house, it could be a marital or a relationship breakdown. And you need to restructure your mortgage so that you can move forward and be satisfied and happy and healthy. And those life changes can be expensive, absolutely. And, penalties can't be waived. You cannot walk into any financial institution. You can't walk into me and say, I need that penalty waived. We can't waive those penalties. because the money has already been spent from the financial institution or the lending solution provider that you have borrowed that money from. They've had to already pay that money, put it out to you. It costs them money to do that. So, absolutely, if you were to take that money out of your pocket and somebody came to you later and said, "Hey, I need to restructure what I've done," you're going to want to recoup some of that money. So, it is perfectly normal for these penalties to be put in place. It's not somebody trying to take advantage of you. It's not somebody trying to hit you at a hard time when you're already down. It is a cost of doing business. But that cost of doing business can be looked at differently to restructure so that you come out ahead as well as your provider with that mortgage is recouping what they need to recoup to mitigate their losses. So just something to remember. I know I hear and we get upset, like, everybody makes so much money. Why do they have to charge us these penalties? Well, it's costing them money to lend us that money. So each and every one of us, doesn't matter who we are, if we break a fixed rate mortgage, we know going in, or we should know if you've been educated and advised correctly, that there is a penalty to get out of it. And the further along you are in that fixed rate mortgage, whether it's 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, whatever, the less amount of a penalty you have to pay. But be prepared for that and don't skirt away from it if you have a life event happening. Let's talk about it. Let's make it work where it's palatable. Um, Want to talk a little bit about qualification rules and documentations required. They've tightened significantly, especially for self-employed clients. With self-employed clients, if you haven't been in business for 2 years, it's really hard to get that lending. It's not impossible, but it's very hard to get that lending. We've still got, when we're looking at mortgages, especially, there's still stress tests that need to be done. So if you've got an interest rate that is 4.19, the stress test to the government regulatory pieces are saying that you have to add 2% onto that. So you actually have to qualify at a higher rate. And these rules have been put in place to protect us as the consumer, as well as the lending facilities and lending areas, is because they're taking a risk to lend us that money, and they are also being sure, the same as the government's being sure, that when rates change or should rate change, are we putting our clients in the best position to be able to make a payment at renewal at a higher interest rate potentially? So, when we look at it, it might cost you, it's going to look like it's going to cost you more on a monthly or biweekly payment or weekly payment than it's actually going to cost you when we do these stress tests, but it's going to set you up for success down the road if mortgage rates continue to climb. We don't know. None of us have a crystal ball. Wish we did. I'd be a millionaire if I had that crystal ball, but we all have to go on that factor of the what if. And it's our job to make sure that you are put in a position to be successful come time for renewals. The other thing with self-employed clients is a lot of times when you're doing your taxes, you have so many write-offs that it doesn't look like you're making 100,000, 100+ thousand, where you really actually are. So yes, we do look at the notice of assessments, but we also look at the bank statements. We will take your bank statements and look at your cash flow that way and try and work with you to get you approved on that cash flow, or what your deposits are monthly from your payments from your people you do work for. I'll give you an example of a situation where I had a self-employed person who had only been in business for 18 months. When you looked at the cash flow and you looked at their bank statements, their revolving cash through that bank statement in every month was upwards towards $25,000 a month. Now, when you take that and they have to, pay themselves, pay employees, they have to pay for their vehicles, they've got tools to pay, they've got contractors that they have to pay, they've got suppliers that they have to pay. And when you take all that away, that money you look at and you go, wow, they're making really good money. However, their notice of assessment is only looking like they make 80,000 a year. And that's because that's what we need to report because of everything that is being paid out. But when you look at what their cash flow is in the bank accounts, they can afford that $900,000 home. On paper in the system, no. When you look at what their cash flow is through bank statements, absolutely. And that is where, as a mortgage broker, I can work with that with self-employed clients. I can do cash ups on it. I can do gross ups on it. And the individual that I'm talking about needed to go into a larger home to fit their family and was kept hitting, no, you can't do it. No, you can't do it. I was able to do that for her after she'd been in business for 18 months. I was able to get them into the home of their dreams that fit the family lifestyle and the number of bedrooms they needed for everybody to be comfortable and a larger square footage. And I had to go through an alternate solution, lending solution, for 12 months so that as she continued to grow her business and worked with her accountant on how she needed to structure things differently, when it came up for renewal this year in 2026, we were able to relook at that, work with not just her financial statements every month, but also to work with their a notice of assessments. And we were able to get them moved from an alternate lending solutions into one of the top 5 banks. Made a significant difference in her cash flow and her payments. She was going along, they were going along just fine, month to month, being able to manage the payments. But it took a lot off of their shoulders when we were able to bring it down by almost 2% with the interest rate. So that's why I say, don't always look at interest rates. Look at the short-term solution that's going to give you that long-term gain. So that's a success story that I feel really, really proud of. I think that's powerful to say that, it's not in that cookie cutter box. You have to have 2 years. You have to have your notice of assessments that are showing that you're making 150, 200,000 a year. You have to have your bank statements that also show that. You have to have your credit rating that's really strong. Well, you know what? There's a lot of things we can work around and work through because again, life happens. And people that are business owners, they work so hard to build their business. They also deserve to be able to build their home and their life for their family. So I'm always very happy when I can sit down with a business owner and we can sit at the table or across the Zoom and we can just sit and talk about what their goals are. I get all their documents. I sit down and I structure what they need and I go back to them. And a lot of times I'll go back to them with 2 or 3 different solutions. Sometimes I only have one solution for them. And I'll go back and say, this is all we've got. These are the reasons why this is all we've got. Let's make it work. Qualifications when I'm asking for documents or I'm asking for explanations on things. As a mortgage broker, it's because I want to do what's best for you. So As we talk through all of this and we look at it, I will say to you, a strong mortgage strategy should provide you flexibility, not just security in the lowest rate. So let's talk a little bit before we wrap up today, and let's talk a little bit about people's lives. People's lives are busy. Life is hectic. And when you go in and you talk to your financial institutions and you talk to your lenders, whether it's a renewal or it's a new lending solution for whatever you're doing, construction builds, anything like that, housing, home ownership, whatever. Sometimes it's just easier to sit down and sign because you're comfortable with that institution or you're comfortable with that individual that you're working with. And that's not always the easiest thing to do, and it's not always the best solution to do. A lot of times you never realize that when you're just walking in and signing, there are so many different and better solutions that are available just by having that open conversation with someone like myself. Sometimes you can get better rates elsewhere. Sometimes, as I talked about before, the structure of the penalty can look a little bit different than having to pay that, I don't know, 10, 15, 20, 30,000 plus penalty to break your mortgage. There's better financing flexibility. You have opportunities to consolidate debt. Your monthly cash flow can improve significantly just by having that conversation. Things to consider when we're talking around working with a mortgage broker. Some of the things, it's not just that we submit paperwork. We help structure the story. I work with stated income programs. I work with alternative lending solutions, income restructure strategies, debt consolidations to improve your debt service ratios, credit rebuilding strategies, sometimes using the spouse's income effectively is needed, and I work with that. I sit down and we do very strategic mortgage planning before your renewal or your purchase, so that when you go in confident, you go in clear, and you go in educated. And those are the things that are really, really important to me. So let's talk a little bit now again about the relationship with myself versus the rate. And you've heard me talk a lot that rate isn't always the best option. When we look at relationship, I can help you with future planning. What are your goals? What is your next step? Maybe you want to buy a second home. Maybe you want to go into another business. Maybe you want to buy a vacation home.